Welcome to Stone Soup Poetry. We have a feature tonight. Our summer of features on and off continue, and I'm very thrilled to have a feature who was recommended and promoted to us by the One Man Walking promo packet of Robert Fleming of Old Scratch Press, one of a collective of Old Scratch Press, and out of that imprint is this the book from Ellis Elliott. Is the first of their books to be published. And what's the title of it again, Ms. Elliott?
Break in the Field.
Break in the Field. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that when Robert does the introduction. I'm going to move over to the open mic. It looks like we'll have a nice short and sweet open mic. No one's raising their hand to see if they want to be part of the open mic. I tried to reach some people such as Carol Weston, who usually join us by phone. Carol's not going to be with us tonight, it seems, but I should make an announcement that if anyone is interested, you should join this in the Boston Poetry Marathon that's happening this Saturday and Sunday. Oh, Annette, I have you down already. You should join the Stone Soup Facebook group, or even the Boston Poetry Marathon Facebook group, as they'll be doing a live stream, which I'll try and put onto Stone Soup as well. For those of you who don't know, the Boston Poetry Marathon has been going on for 25 years, and we have about 100 poets who get together every summer. Used to be at Outpost 186 in Cambridge, but now we've moved to the much roomier and air-conditioned Community Church of Boston. And that's located right in Copley Square for anyone who wants to stop by. The first poets go on around 12 o'clock on Saturday the 5th this weekend, and hopefully we'll have the online component. We're not doing hybrid with online readers this year. It got a little too complicated when we tried to do it hybrid. It was much easier just to do the either full remote or not at all. But we are going to do a live stream of the readers. So if you want to be part of that, and also if you're in the area and you want to volunteer, we'd also love to see people come by and do that if you live locally. And also there's going to be the Oddball Festival, which if you're local at all and want to come to Mansfield, Massachusetts, it's a Saturday afternoon festival hosted by Jason Wright and organized by him. And Jason Wright is the person who was instrumental in hosting last week's open mic, which I appreciated because I had a lot going on that week. And he was also instrumental in helping to promote Ellis as well, and letting Robert take the reins and got attention. So I appreciate that as well. But Jason's event, there'll be more information on it at the Stone Soup Facebook page and elsewhere. So I hope you guys partake, those of you who can and live locally enough. Bill will be expecting you. Anyway, I hope Bill fixes his mic in all seriousness. But for now, let's go to the first person on the Raminator 5000 for the open mic. And so far, with only four to five names to choose from, we have selected first Annette Tarpley and asked her about her own Facebook page activities. She's the one person busier on Facebook with poetry than me. So Annette, the floor is yours. Oops, you're muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, the passion of poetry, we're growing leaps and bounds. We grew about 50,000 in 3 months. So I'm not sure how that happens, but so I have a new poem that I wrote. I've been working in nursing homes and see a lot of patients that don't get visitors. And so this is kind of after that. It's called The Forgotten. I held her frail, wrinkled hand, veins prominent in a bony structure, wondering about the fruits of their labor. How many tears had they brushed from streaked faces? How many loaves of bread had they kneaded? How many pie crusts had they formed? How many times had they clasped together in prayerful supplication? How many diapers had they changed? How many times have they caressed the hands of another to comfort? Her once piercing blue eyes, now clouded by a film, gazing into mine with the blank stare. How many sunrises have they seen? How many silent words have they spoke? How much love had they conveyed? How many tears had they shed? How many questions had they implored? How many hearts had they broken? When was the last setting sun they had seen? Her ears, now large, prominent, and drooping, have lost the sense to capture that for which they were created. What secrets have they heard? What promises whispered that were not kept? What music have they loved? Do they miss the sound of laughter? Do they yearn for the pitter-pat of rain? When did they last hear an I love you? Were they lonely now in their silence? Her mouth, lips now dried and cracked, trying desperately to move, to form words that they couldn't speak, now touching my face with a weakened kiss. I mourned for the once vibrant woman now living alone in her shell, separated by a membrane of time, lost in a vault of sequestered memories. In a facility, she was cared for by unknowing strangers, for no visitors would enter the doors in the land of the forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annette. And check out her Passion of Poetry Facebook group, which is one of the more hopping places in the Facebook metaverse. I feel dirt just by saying metaverse, but I'll think of a different word next time. Up next is the aforementioned Robert Fleming on the open mic. He's the one who, oh, sorry, didn't mean to dash your hopes of taking a bathroom break, Robert. But Robert's the one who helped make this gathering possible tonight. And I did put the share screen multiple participants option on, sir. So you have the forum.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Robert Fleming, a writer and graphic artist from Delaware. And I'm going to share the second part of John Wessex and my collaboration together. Just this past week, I submitted our collaboration for publication in Medusa's Kitchen, and it was accepted and will be published this Monday. These are the photographs of John and I that I submitted. The photograph of me was taken in Stone Soup open mic. And I'm going to share our second piece together. I did want to share what I wrote about John and my collaboration together, which I submitted. Robert Fleming and John Wessex met in 2019 during the COVID-19 pandemic on Zoom on the Tuesday night Cobalt Poets open mic hosted by Rick Lupert. Their first work was a tribute to John's love of wombats and Robert's love of horror. A visual poem, I Sat Bat, Not Wombat, was published by Dumpster Fires Press in God's Guns, Glory, and Greed. Medusa's Kitchen is John and Robert's second time working together. And then I will ask John to unmute and read his poem. He did the text and I did the graphics.
Well, thank you for including me in this, Robert. Alcoholic breakfast. Secrets between the pancakes, recriminations in the coffee. She pours suspicion in a juice glass. He spreads excuses on the toast, passes the butter dish of abuse. Eggs stare in awkward silence. heaping home fries of denial.
Thank you, John. And this is the graphic image I did inspired by John's poem. One of the challenges for this work is that there was a conflict between two good principles of graphic design. The first one is the content. I chose the two TV trays to look away from each other because I imagined if two alcoholics were having breakfast, they would not be looking at each other. And the challenge with that is that it moves the eye outside of the picture. And both for a photograph and for a graphic image, you want to try to keep the viewer's eye in the picture for at least 10 seconds. And then I use the graphic images of the eyes to try to keep the viewer's eye in the picture. And thank you for letting me share. My two next activities as a writer will be preparing for the publication of my book, A White Noir, through Old Scratch Press in November. I have to complete my author marketing sheet and create a website for myself. And those will be my activities for August. And greetings from Delaware and from Old Scratch Press.
Oh, here I am. Thank you so much, Robert. I'll be looking for, what's the name of what's the title of your book again?
It's called White Noir. It's a visual poetry book. Half of it is visual art and half of it is visual poetry.
Very nice. Be looking forward to seeing that. Bill Lewis has got his voice back. We'll get to him very shortly. But the Remninator already put in place Jan Rowe, if you're ready. And also, if anyone else out there wants to read as part of tonight, you can definitely put either raise your hand virtually.
Oh, am
There
I?
you go,
Yeah.
Jan.
Okay, this is about the 11th year of the pilgrim from the homeless community. And 11 years ago, there were 4 people in it. Now there's 80 some. So it came out yesterday, and here's what mine they put in. And this is from our weekly Black Seed. Why the wealth gap? In A Stranger in Your Own City Travels in the Middle East Long War, the author writes of his stay in his native Iraq and of his heritage when teachers, engineers, and government employees, drafted soldiers, were considered the country's nascent lower middle class. What? Recently in the Midwest, public school teachers were being forced to resign as they can't afford the rent. And their 5 years of housing assistance is over. Kaput. How odd. As a public school teacher in Delaware, living in mixed income housing, I was evicted around 1988 as the garden apartments were going from mixed income to poor. Fortunately, one of my 11th grade vocational students knew her employer, Thelma, of Thelma's Beauty Salon, to soon have an empty, although termite-infested house to rent on 40 acres under the biggest pecan tree in the state. So are teachers lower middle class or what? Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. And up next, I hope he's up to it, calling from parts unknown. I can usually recognize the outside of his farm, the area of his farm, but he looks to be an episode of This Old House. Let's welcome up Mr. Bill Lewis.
So, are you able to hear me?
Yes,
Really?
yes.
Whoa, that is so cool. I mean, I'm out in the cabin up at the lake, so I wasn't expecting this would work at all. I was going, oh, well, it'll be nice, but it's not gonna happen. I'm on the other side of the lake. It's out in Nowheresville. And as you can see, well, there's my bedroom. Don't I have a beautiful bed? Yeah. Anyway, so I have been
Uh-oh. Think we may have lost him.
a long stretching out into where the winter had once filled the lake and now remains only sand and sand of the rocks that I could play on when I was 10 years old until they closed the dam. Without Gramps, our cabin saw a long, slow decline, falling apart from her foundations to her walls, to her rafters, to all the things that got left in her, tons of crap, shit, junk, bottles, TV sets, tents. Oh, how proud would Gramps be to see his cabin restored? His cabin. At least 30% of the rafters are original, and the joists, though not the foundations or the flooring, or we did keep the outside doors and the windows. That's enough to call it his cabin, isn't it? Gramps once gazed out these windows onto the lake just as I gaze out these windows onto the lake right now, 1 century apart. That's pretty cool.
And thank you, Bill. Glad you were able to join us. Glad you got the situation set up. Glad you're in a cabin by a lake instead of a van down by the river. We are now moving on to the next person on the open mic. Let's welcome up Mr. John Wezek.
Okay, well, last time detectives Wagmore and Torres were investigating the killings of advertising mascots. So join me now in the exciting conclusion of the Spokes Critter killings. Looks like a flightless bird took a swan dive off the 13th floor. Dr. O'Brien pulled back the sheet for the detectives to see the body bleeding purple ink. Can't say I feel sorry. That's Oscar, the obedient ostrich. Torres leaned forward for a better look. When I was growing up, my parents told me and my sister to be more like Oscar. Funny thing, they never said that to the boys. Detectives, I think you should see this. A uniformed officer motioned Wagmore and Torres to a stairwell marked with an arrow and a sign that said "This way." The detectives trudged up the stairs, followed the signs to the exit onto the roof, and stopped by one that pointed over the edge, saying, "Step here." That dodo was too dumb to live, Wagmore said. Oscar and an eel sat in a secure room. These documents prove our government has known the Vietnam War is unwinnable for decades. Eelsberg pointed to a stack of papers marked top secret. We need to inform the public. Don't do it. Oscar grabbed Eelsberg by the shoulders. Even though we have security clearances, President Nixon knows more about the situation than we do. You're right. We must trust our superiors. Eelsberg sat down. The following day, Oscar showed the headline on the New York Times that said, Hanoi surrenders. You were right all along. Eelsberg shook Oscar's wing. Always obey the authorities. They know more than you do. So you were right, Wagmore, Captain Barkless says. What do you want, a citrus caramel sundae? With toasted almonds. Damn it, Wagmore! Captain Barkless left and returned 30 minutes later with a Wagmore's sundae. There! So some serial killer is bumping off the most annoying cartoon characters in Jupiter City. What are we going to do about it? Shame we have to do anything at all. Torres picked an almond off Wagmore's sundae. Jupiter City would be a better place without those lowlifes. Agreed. Captain Barkless looked at the dessert and touched his expanding waistline. The citizens don't care, but mayoral candidate George Kintsugi is making noises. If he gets elected, it could affect our budget. We could, excuse me, Wagmore swallowed, stake out potential victims. Who are the most annoying cartoon characters in Jupiter City? Captain Barkless stroked his chin. For my money, they would be Barry the union-busting bear and Gilbert the gospel-quoting gopher, Torres answered. Sounds like a plan, Barkless said. Wagmore, take the gopher. Torres, you've got the bear. Wagmore parked his Ford Crown Victoria in front of an A-framed church on Inspiration Way. He entered and found the cartoon gopher kneeling in front of a huge cross behind the pulpit. Even in animation, Gilbert's suit looked drab and unflattering. Excuse me, Mr. Gopher, I'm Detective Dirk Wagmore. We're concerned about your safety. Have you received any threats? Do you believe in Jesus, detective? Gilbert adjusted his plastic-rimmed glasses. I don't think about it much. Whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Right. Wagmore realized it was going to be a long day. Let me check the locks on your windows. Later that night, Wagmore's cell phone rang. Dirk, I'm screwed, Torres said. I stepped out for 15 minutes to get some chicken and waffles. When I came back, I saw Barry the union-busting bear getting into a limo with George Kintsugi. I trailed them to the abandoned plutonium mine on Racine. I need backup, but if I call it in, the captain will have my ass. On my way, Wagmore dashed to his car. Even with lights flashing, it took Wagmore 20 minutes to drive across town. When he skidded to a halt in the parking lot, there was no trace of a limousine or Torres's Dodge Charger. He rushed to the entrance and peered inside. Hello? The only response was the sound of his echo and smell of alpha particles. Wagmore called Torres, but there was no signal. His police radio had no reception either. It must have been the radiation. Shit, Wagmore slapped his head. The gopher. He jumped in his car and raced back to the church. Drop your gun or the gopher gets it. Torres held Gilbert from behind with her pistol to his head. We can talk about this, Liz. Wagmore placed his pistol on the floor and raised his hands. Sucker. Torres fired 2 rounds into Wagmore's chest. The hollow points expanded as they ripped through his lungs, and he died, choking on blood. Torres scooped up Wagmore's pistol and executed Gilbert, the gospel-quoting gopher, just like she'd killed Lenny, Wanda, and Oscar. She'd hated cute characters who propagandized little minds too young for fact-checking ever since Marco, the Manteca marmot, had crashed her quinceanera. Once the heat cooled down, she'd introduced Barry, the union-busting bear, to an industrial shredder. After that, she'd knock off Francis, the family values fox, and those porcupines on the toilet paper ads. She wiped her fingerprints off Wagmore's pistol, placed it in his dead hand, and prepared for the best acting of her life. This is Torres, she sobbed into the police radio. It was Wagmore. He killed all of them. I tried to save Gilbert, but it was too late. Thank you, everybody.
That is, I'm loving this. I appreciate this very much. Oh, let's go now. We have one person who just joined us, but I want to go with someone who's been here and sitting here very patiently. And this is a columnist for Oddball Magazine. Visit oddballmagazine.com, especially today. We have two tributes to the late Sinead O'Connor. One by Shannon O'Connor, who's and the other by Tom Driscoll, both regulars. And we also have amazing art. I literally found tribute art on Twitter from an artist whose name was Donna Anita Black. And I asked her if I could use the art, and she said yes, and which was very fortuitous because I just didn't want to have stock footage of Sinead tearing the Pope's picture up, which would have been appropriate, but I want to go with something a little more colorful. But if you go to oddballmagazine.com, you'll see both those pieces pretty prominently there. And if you go to oddballmagazine.com tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, you'll see this person's column, a poem column, some experiment I started when I became associate editor of Oddball about 10 years ago. 10 years ago this October. And his poem column, It's All One Thing, is featured every Thursday morning without fail at 11 o'clock. And he's almost on his 10th year of doing it. I think he's reaching his 500th column later this month or next. Can't remember now, but let us welcome up Mr. James Van Loy.
Thanks, Chad. So I have a poem here, which is actually what was in the Black Seed Writers, called Labyrinth as Fin de Siècle. There he is, waiting for me in the day program hall, the heartless, homeless, not helpless, full-time warrior against all those motherfucking pieces of holy shit, shitbag, cunt bastard abusers of the needy and poor who sneak their way through social services chasm between what people so need and what exists. So this honey badger Wolverine of unaddressed abuse and unforgivable neglect has finally experienced love in the form of his doctor or Doc's 7-month-old baby little girl, whose great eyes have smitten his black hole of angry, complete emptiness, to leave even he wondering that he of all people could be feeling this fine way. So now he has written what he calls his only real poem, but slips back into his long, convoluted reconstruction of all the horrors that have been perpetrated upon him, and indeed to all trapped within all the poorhouse walls of staff who always back each other, and supervisors who won't listen, and structures that never ever could change, but all he has to do is reread his piece. His only one poem of the irresistible, yes, devastating little beauty of this ember. He glows again. His Jack Nicholson-like hardness melts in his face, and eyes light up like Ebenezer Scrooge alive after the final angel, final night, with hard gray line face, gaunt with diabetes, taking on the hue of health, and at least momentarily, he is for once alive and is able to see what he never saw before, so intense he is ready to kill for that small innocent being who could make him feel so much for just this one short time in this incredibly long, so long, miserable 52 years, what he never thought he could feel. Oh, such wonder and joy in the simple total love of another.
No. Very nice, James. That's wow. And you, as I said, you can check out his column. His 496 column is going up later on tomorrow at 11 o'clock. He'll be at 500 by, I think, just right after Labor Day. So this is quite an accomplishment, and I'm grateful for all the people who are continuing to write for Oddball Magazine today, including Jason Wright, the publisher, Janet Cormier, Bruce Wise, and a host of other contributors and regular artists like Ed Galt, Jennifer Matthews, so many others, too many to name. I'm going to leave out so many if I start mentioning. So check out oddballmagazine.com, and best of all, consider submitting. We're also looking for any topical pieces. We try and do at least one timely piece per week. We went a little bit more this week, but whatever you have, we will try and fit in. Before I introduce the last person on the open mic, I'm just going to read one. I've been thrilled with the poems I've been writing inspired by the open mics. I do a series called Stone Soup Croutons, which I write after every open mic. I basically take notes or listen to the open mic afterwards and write poems based on impressions, ideas, or even half-heard words I heard incorrectly during the open mic. So in the last couple of weeks, I've done 2 poems based around breakfast. I think most of that could be attributed to John Wessex' serial killings, short story series of stories, but also other people have been bringing up breakfast and what have you throughout the poems. It just happened twice, typically happened twice this open mic. So this is the first one I wrote. If I can get a third one, I'll have a triptych I can publish somewhere. This one's called Before Breakfast. Could have become one of those who count dewdrops under some bridge, asking each one to be a friend or a dad, wall staring stone-faced. Best years almost killed you, so much burnt, never want to play a fiddle again. Almost gone, forgotten, story serialized like a 70s serial mascot. Heartstrings play bass, remind you you're alive, not buried under roses or waiting in line for a door that won't slide open at 3 in the morning. Now you want someone for something besides warmth. Music heard from open window no longer goes down like caltrops in your drinking glass. Eat some semi-healthy flakes, let a breeze in. Don't think of churches with awnings that keep the rain off. Maybe I'll do the second one next week, and whatever third one I do when we have a gathering after that. Is a crouton different from a cento? That's a good question. I didn't even know of centos before I happened, but I knew there were a lot of poets, especially at the Cantab open mic, who would do poems very quickly based on what was heard. I would like to think it's a little different from the cento because I'm not trying to take exact words and phrases, or if I do, I quote them outright. I guess you can't put a cento on a salad. Very good, John. But so I think they're a little bit different, but if anyone wants to call them a cento, I'm not going to stand there and go, actually. So but those are my thoughts. Thanks for the question. Up next and last for the open mic before we get to our lovely feature. Let's go now to Jeff Taylor, who is not only someone who I was going to ask for volunteer help for the Boston Poetry Marathon. Check for your inbox for an email not too long after this feature. But also he is recruited himself, along with the other members of the Garage Poets, a musical poetry troupe, shall we say, band, garage band, who will be performing for the Oddball Festival in Mansfield next week on August 13th. So all that and a bag of chips will be shared on the Facebook groups like Stone Soup Poetry, Oddball Foundation, and elsewhere. And Jeff Taylor has his own reading series for Garage Poets and his own Facebook page as well. You should plug into that. And now, without further ado, Mr. Taylor.
Thanks, Chad. Always good to be here. So I'm going to do a poem called I'm Not But I Am. And this poem was accepted to the New Beat Generation Poets Anthology 2023. And you can get that on Amazon now. There's a ton of great poets have poems in there. even if my poem wasn't in there, I would highly recommend this anthology just based on everybody else. But you can also get this poem as well. This is I'm not, but I am. I'm not campaigning to be president, but I'm building my library. I'm not the founder of a social network, but I'm wearing a hoodie. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but I talk sitcom philosophies. I'm not a spy, but I'm chain smoking. I didn't go to flight school, but I'm a stoner. I didn't find God, but I married my best friend. I'm not a cult leader, but my children love me. I didn't consider myself an alcoholic, but I over-celebrated every minor holiday. I didn't create change, but I'm listening to podcasts. I'm not the heavyweight world champion, but I beat myself up. I didn't make the All-American team, but I know how to play the game. I'd make a terrible waiter, but I'll bring you what you ask for. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Hang on one sec.
I want your kid to be in the background of all my readings now too. I don't know if you noticed it, but when you said I'm not a cult, I'm not in a cult, but I'm not a cult, but my children worship me. I heard the background. So
yeah, I'm not a cult leader, but my children love me.
Love me, sorry. Yes, I just heard.
Nobody worships me. I just had to set that straight.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, I can't wait to for Oddball Fest. Definitely, everybody you can get your tickets in advance now if you're going to be around Massachusetts, Mansfield on the 13th. I highly suggest coming out. There's going to be a lot of good performances and games and all sorts of things.
That's right, and best of all, there's links to the Eventbrite page where you can donate minimum of $10, as much as $35 if you want to, for the tickets. And James Van Loy is also going to be, as one of the Oddball Poets, is going to be participating as well. So more people are being announced as we hear about them. It's more people than we can fit on a single 11 by 17 flyer. But that is enough of us and our hyping our own things. We're going to go now to.
You're muted, Chad.
How long have I been talking? 80 minutes? Okay. Good Lord. But yes, I said check out the Facebook for the Eventbrite link for the Oddball Festival. But now it's time to introduce our feature, Ellis Elliott, by way of Robert Fleming. So Robert, you have the mic once again.
Good evening. I'm Robert Fleming, one of the founding members and contributing editors to Old Scratch Press. And I want to shout out gratitude for the other members of Old Scratch Press who came tonight to support Elias for how far we've gotten since February. I want to shout out for Morgan Dalloway and Gabby Gilliam and Janet Yushendu, who's here tonight. And I'm going to share Ellis's bio. Ellis Elliott is the creator of the Wilderness Writing. She received her MFA in creative writing from Queen's University. She has been a high school English teacher and was a ballet teacher for over 30 years and a yoga teacher. She lives in Juno Beach with her husband, and they have 6 sons in their blended family. Ellis was on the editorial staff of QU Literary Magazine at Queen's University and is currently a contributing writer for the Southern Review of Books and on the editorial staff of the Dewdrop Online Digest. Her latest literary adventure is writing her first cozy mystery novel. Ellis Elliott's Break in the Field is her first collection of poetry that was published in July by Old Scratch Press and has been nominated for the National Book Review in Poetry. I welcome Ellis Elliott to the mic.
Well, thank you, Robert. I'm so glad to be here. And Robert, thank you again for vetting me to Stone Soup Poetry, and Chad for having me here, because clearly this is a fun group. So I guess I just go ahead and jump into the book. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, that sounds good. You could start with showing us the cover.
Okay, I'm going to hold it up since I'm incapable of figuring out how to share it on the thing. So it is, here's the cover. It's a dollhouse with a wheelchair right outside the front door. And the back cover is the other side of the dollhouse. And the intention is that a dollhouse to me represented an idealized world, and to have a wheelchair in it sort of shatters that perception, especially since it's beside a steep set of stairs and a doorway that's not big enough. And it relates to my book in that the majority of poems have to do with my severely disabled stepson, that in middle age I remarried and gained 3 stepsons, and Julian cannot walk, talk, or feed himself. So it caused a shift in my perception, or a break in the field. And that comes from a quote from a disability textbook that talks about how any chance you have to be around someone that has a disability can cause a break in your field of perception, in the way you see the body and its precariousness in the world. So, and then the rest of the poems relate to how lots of things can cause a shift in the way we see the world. First poem I'd like to share is Burst. 1,000,000 trillion times as bright as the sun, cosmic gamma ray bursts are the most energetic and short-lived in the universe. Your brain vessels shattered at birth into 1,000,000 stars, just like that. 1,000,000,000,000 ideas of you lost in cosmic minutes. Hope flashes like comets or bonfires or candlelight. Maybe moonlight on sugared snow. Let's pretend it is poetic, sublime. Pretend in darkness we see a glint. Pretend you're a universe we're not meant to know. The next one is Julian at Rest. Sleep unfastens him from the stiff knot of day, and his jerks and tremors slacken. His clenching contractions slither off, their work done. In darkness, he sheds the dissonant world. His tangled electrical signals loosen and float like ribbon as relief unrolls its velvet bed of stillness. The next one was the first one I ever wrote about Julian a long time ago. It's called Come Lay Your Hands, and it begins with the epigraph, Jesus changes everything, Joyce Meyer, televangelist, except Julian's diaper, Tim, father of 17-year-old Julian, who cannot walk, talk, or feed himself. Oh, come lay your hands upon him, speak in tongues and song and ancient words, bring your creeds, your rituals, your holy smoke and incense, raise him high, kneel down low, rock him in your arms, bow at his feet. Baptize him in water, anoint him in oil, lift him up, sit him in a sweat lodge, print his name on a list, circle up, and phone tree him with prayer. Let that prayer grow loud and enormous, a monster to envelop everything in its path. Place pins in him that correspond with systems both physical and spiritual. Join your words, your thoughts, your prayers into a groundswell of unity. Email this list to your 7 best friends. Don't walk under a ladder or look in a cracked mirror, but do pick up a penny. Pick the number 7. Read from your books, scriptures, and verses. Chant and ring bells. Give it your best shot. Oh, harness your codified swirled circles of energy that pop across eternity, cacophonous and unwieldy as Godzilla in downtown New York City. Let them rain down in snowflakes upon his face, blanket him in paper confetti of prayers and tears turned whispers in his ear. Be sure no one is looking when you tell him the truth. You are powerless and cannot change him. He has changed you. All right. Strike. Some stories fill the house of your body like smoke, the smell of cigarette rising up the carpeted stairs from the kitchen, ice crackling from plastic tray to glass. Regular as ballet class and homework, I waited in my room for her steps up to bed, my shallow breath background set sound for dread. In the flicker of half sleep, I was sure her heavy lids, unsteady fingers would go slack, the lit tip fall again. This time sure it would not stop at scorched carpet or sheets with buttonhole burns. Sure I would feel the blurred heat first. Some stories live in your bones like fire on a North Carolina winter night. My father's tale of the thunderstorm that hit the farm after Christmas, how he played with his toy train on the oval terrain of the brown and gold braided rug by the hearth. How lightning struck and sparks circled the track surrounding him before disappearing. How he froze, unable to speak. How 70 years later he could feel the hot current run under the thin flesh of his hand. Some stories slide thick from behind to settle like black tar down my fully grown spine. How they no longer ignite with bending or excess heat, but stagnant and unwilling to go, resigned to the stain. I don't know, can you? Mrs. Lewis would say whenever we ask, "Can I use the restroom?" in 7th grade, forcing us to say, "May we?" which we reenacted repeatedly, but never forgot. Aaron sat between Trish and I on the row closest to the door, with his shiny brown hair slicked back and wearing polyester plaid high-water pants. His job was go-between, for passing carefully folded notes, his arm swing casual but calculated. He took his job seriously, as we did ours. Many times, while Mrs. Lewis stood at the board, he would begin an almost inaudible humming of Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. Sometimes, amid the din of passing Tyson chicken trucks, she would turn. She would ask if someone said something, and we knew she had heard him. We always shook our heads no and shrugged. Our unspoken agreement held fast, balancing our young selves on the edges of how we can learn the rules, how we may break them, and how we could and might be heard. All right. Next one is called When Your Mother Buys You Self-Help Books Instead of Talking. Smart women, foolish choices simply means I want you to think a bit again about your choice of college boyfriend. I know he's your first love, but he won't be your last. I hope you know all the fire of new love is fun, but always comes to an end. Bet on it. Act like a lady, think like a man simply means now that you're divorced, think twice about those yoga pants. You've had 3 children. And lower your laugh. Steve Harvey says it's okay to be independent, just not too independent. Look into it, and for God's sake, quit smoking. You look like a dragon. Love is like that, consuming and blazing breaths like my love for you. I fly circles overhead, not knowing any other way than this, scorching fields below with messages in smoke. The next one is on the eve of my son's early onset schizophrenia exam. The plumage of my devotion unfurls inside a canopy of tangled tree branches. My ragged wings reach to hide the moss-covered nest of my son's shiny eccentricities. My delicate spine curls to cover his disparate offerings, scraps of tinfoil, gold nib of fountain pen, and the shifting hues of a hummingbird feather. He hears them, insistent shards of sound coming closer, voices circling and lifting from roots below. The funnel clouds of chatter rise. With your small body tucked beneath mine, I take off, while I still think we can outrun this, while my talons clutch your soft belly so tight they draw blood. New Mellery. Their voices lifted and ricocheted off the cold stone walls of the abbey as Trappist monks sang at services 7 times a day. They lined each side like perfect white teeth, and the slant of sun struck arches of leaded glass to bounce back in swirls off the black granite altar. Outside my sparse room of metal bed and beveled window panes, diligent snow-covered cornfields stood guard. I had come seeking order, a certain solace found in ritual, and devotion dressed in crisp robes. My own life was a simmering litany of unsatisfied appetites, always too much and never enough. I craved belief like theirs, strong enough to rise at 3 a.m. and to sing. Guests were invited, so I shook sleep and sin off like a bear resting itself from hibernation, and joined them. My animal self was not gone, but restless and ravenous. I sent my voice high like a long dormant hymn, more growl than song. Turquoise sweater. She kept asking for the turquoise sweater with square tortoiseshell buttons, and I kept saying, I'm looking, as if there were any place to look besides the narrow, standard issue wardrobe in her bland nursing home room. I chose not to tell her about her condo floor filled with boxes and garbage bags, or the friends backing up the truck to load the freezer. I did not tell how my brother and I had sorted through and boxed her photograph albums, her yellowed letters with grandmother's cursive, or her jewelry. I did not tell her about the 12 pairs of scissors we'd found, or the bulging manila folder of her nursing school papers. Not the ruby red Fostoria glassware in the kitchen cabinet, not the tin boxes of instant Jell-O in the pantry, not the turquoise sweater with square tortoiseshell buttons, and most of all, not the multiple trips to Goodwill. I think she knew it was gone. Both of us practiced in the truths we were hiding, as if rehearsing lesser agonies might ease the letting go. Music lessons. I can tell you about the student learning to conduct a symphony, told to practice by holding a bag of beans in her palm in order to feel the weight of the notes in her body. It intrigues me to think of the heft of crescendo, ascending decibels gathering upwards, and whether they float or seem tethered as she lifts her arm before the inevitable descent, whether it strikes at the center of her sternum and drops like a silver pinball to her belly. I can tell you the weight of grief lodged between my ribs, changed in time from puddle to solid, palpable beneath the surface of my skin. I wait for them to disintegrate, become smooth black shards like bass notes, my body an open mouth, ready to sing. God comes to you, disguised as your life, and dressed in a heavy robe of red silk brocade with pockets, inside and out, filled with wine corks and old keys, your son's baby teeth and your first engagement ring, your mom's damp cocktail napkin, your dad's 1972 McGovern pen, and a crumpled pack of Marlboro Lights. Until the day comes, you begin to empty every pocket, piece by piece. You hold each in your palm, pausing before the clatter to the floor, before stopping to slide the silk robe off your shoulders, only to realize you are left as you've always been, perfect and holy. Let's finish on this one. It's not exactly happy, but we'll go with it. Husk. She was a day past presence, riding the jagged breath below the surface of consciousness. I was running to make the next plane to Arkansas, my frantic airport pace pulled by 1,000 thinning cords to home. I was running, gunning the rental car through the curves of the Ozarks, clench gut determined to make it, for her to hear the familiar cadence of my voice. She was inside her last flickering, the holding place beneath skin papered over bone. Her skull was a half-empty nest propped on a pillow with the tempo of slowing wing beats until I ran through the door. She gave a violent jerk at the sound of my voice, and it was as if the words themselves had shed their warm husks and were reduced to pulsing threads between us from the hollow dark where we first met. All right, thank you very much. That's what I've got. I appreciate you listening.
Thank you very, very much, Ellis Elliott. You put your hands together virtually, live in front of camera 20, 30 times. Her book is available thanks to the power of the website that shall not be named. No, it is available to order. I will break in the field is a paperback, and it is available for $9.99 off of Amazon. No, off of Amazon, and looks like a steal of a deal. And this is coming out from Old Scratch Press, the collective. For those of you who are here tonight, thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here for support. If Ellis has a Venmo account or a PayPal of any kind, and we can donate a couple of bucks towards your good work and towards your reading tonight. So if you do have a Venmo tag, or if you have a PayPal email address. I will put that into the into my post tomorrow so people can donate, and I encourage you to do so, or at the very least, grab this book, which will benefit not just Ellis, but also the Old Scratch Collective. And it's always great to support new work and rising poetry presses. So, as I said, this is exciting, and maybe we'll do a Kindle thing someday. But this looks like a very nice put together package. Just what I've seen from the book, from what you've handled, and what I've seen from Robert. So this looks worth a physical buy too. So I praise. So hope you guys get the copies. Hope you sell a lot of these, and I hope your next readings go really well. So Ellis, any other information, anything you're working on for the future? Are you on that second book already?
Thank you for asking. And thank you once again, Robert, for doing all the things you asked me to do earlier. I'm about halfway through another project that is actually a story and poems based on some women who have their unheard voices from the Civil War.
All right. Tentative title?
No title. Well, yeah, I've got a working title. I Come from Peculiar.
That's got a catch to it, so that's nice. So, well, good luck with that, and
Thank you.
when you get that one finished, look us up. We'll be glad to have you back.
Thank you so much, Chad. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. For those of you who are here for the first time at Stone Soup, we do this almost every Wednesday we can. There are some gaps in the summer just because I can't host from a beach shore. Well, I could, but my girlfriend would kill me. But so there might be 1 week that we have off coming up in August, but otherwise we will meet pretty regularly. We might even be planning a hybrid reading sometime, if not next week, definitely the week after. Stay tuned for that news and for more features coming up for the fall, and maybe even a live gathering, maybe a hybrid at Fisher College if we play our cards right. I'm really excited for the offer, and I'll let you know more than I do. More than I do, or when I do. Good Lord. Well, both. Anyway, do you think I'm seeing now? We will have more announcements for that. But before we go, I did want to give, there is one person who came late, and this is another way of advertising the Boston Poetry Marathon. She's been part of the online gatherings since 2020 in April, when she was calling in from a rehab center. She was stuck in rehab during the height of COVID. And she didn't let that stop her. She was there every week, and she is featured at every single virtual Boston Poetry Marathon, which took place in 2020, 2021, and she was part of the hybrid in 2022, and now she's going to be in person. So if you want to see a face behind the voice, well, you could look through my Facebook photo albums, but you could also come to Boston at the Community Church Center and see her read during the 3 o'clock hour on August 5th, this coming weekend. Let's welcome up Miss Carol Weston. You're ready.
This is UFO to Linda Crane. That's the sign she had on her door. And Robert Kelly, coming up the stairs, said, "Who is that?" And that was Linda Crane, Linda Parker Crane. Her bare foot in the birthday cake of her 23rd year. She who was born in Duxbury became Miss Duxbury to make the money to buy the heavy diving gear she needed. In Cambridge, her blonde hair in luminous strands spread in the candlelight among the lobster pots of her apartment. She walks alone with a gatherer of people. In Gloucester, 10 kettles steam on her stove. The pots and pans are singing. The knives are shining and the bread is baking. She cooks the coat for us. she gathered it while swimming in the mountainous waves that sometimes heave her on the rocks. Her shamanic work, the spirits shake her body, her drum, the center of healing. Over our journeying bodies, outstretched under drumbeat, Linda's wild call sucks the air, summoning the spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you this coming Saturday. And I will, oh, don't forget to take the photo. I will not, I do a screenshot of the video, Robert. So if you're talking about the wave photo, we will definitely do that. And I want to thank again, Ellis, one more time. Please send me through email, or you can send it to Robert, who can send it to me, or Venmo information or PayPal, and we'll send a couple bucks, people, a couple bucks our way. That's not a bad thing to do. A couple bucks. So we will see you next time. Hopefully I'll have an announcement for a feature. This is where we do the wave. Robert's a proud waver now. Yeah, I took a while to convert him, but he's on his best behavior too. No virtual makeup or anything like that. So thank you guys very much. You can wave too, Ellis. We wave, we let people know we had a good time, or I try to convince them we had a good time by telling you all to wave. I forget how it works now. But we'll see you next time. It could be like this every week. All we need is you. Hope you come back and see us again. Look up the Stone Soup Facebook group. Look up my website. I'm at Chad Parento, poetforhire.com. And I know shows like this all the time. Take care of yourselves and have yourself an excellent evening. Or as one person once said,
Good night, y'all.
the show's over. See you next time.
Good night, Robert.